there! Welcome back to the Rare Book Reviews channel, where I talk about how much I love books and book collecting and rare books and just book reading, all the things. And I want to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed and sent me nice comments. It is so fun to get to interact with other book-minded people and possibly the most positive part of the internet. Everybody is so nice. It's great. I love hearing about what people are collecting or reading, so please drop me a note and let me know what you're doing. Sometimes I show what I'm purchasing on my many book searches, but today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite authors, who is Roald Dahl. I loved Roald Dahl when I was a kid. I think I've always really liked authors who are a little weird, a little strange, a little unusual, and Roald Dahl's books, when you think about it as an adult, way out there. I mean, kind of a weirdo. A little creepy, a little unusual. Great life story. He was British. He was born in Wales. He was in the Air Force during World War II. He was shot down, which seems like that should have been a book. And then when he was recovering, he was part of the intelligence crew and came to the United States to try to influence Eisenhower. And apparently he was very social and very popular in DC and very successful. And that, while he was in the United States, is how his works got introduced to Disney. And there was talk about maybe making one of them into a film way back in the day. And so that's what I know about his backstory. I think he's fascinating. It seems like he was very dashing and also a little bit of a troubled character because he was really left, I think, just not really well adjusted after the war, and he couldn't really find his way. So he was not prolific. He wrote for many, many years. He had a long life, but he would just occasionally come out with a short story or a book. So we don't have a ton of them, but the ones we have are really great. So, and I have really kind of an odd collection. I do not generally love short stories. I wish I could, once I really like a story, I want to keep reading it. And the general short story collections do not do it for me, but I have several of Roald Dahl's because they are so great. His short stories, whoa, this guy was genius. I think he published a few in magazines. So there are multiple collections of his short stories where some of them appear in more than one book. So I have a few, and I'll show those to you. This one is paperback. I have this many, many years ago, and it has some of the real heavy hitters, and it is Tales of the Unexplained. The publisher is Vintage. This is a nice one. I like it. Feels good in my hand. And it has some of his more mysterious, more of his adult fare. I really like that one. This I am super lucky to have. Someone Like You. This was published in... I'm not ready for, I'm giving myself a pop quiz. Okay, there's many copyright dates on the copyright page because there are several stories that were printed in magazines, like I said. So the copyright page is a little confusing. It gives many dates, and the last one is 1953, so I think it must have been published after that. It has a Library of Congress catalog number and not an ISBN. So definitely somewhere between the 50s and the 70s maybe. This is a handily stated first edition. His books we'll talk about. What edition is it anyways? Actually says first edition right here. I've seen other editions of this book, and they often seem like maybe they are, because in this book it says first edition on the first, and then in later editions it doesn't say anything. So if you see one without an edition, you might think, oh, it doesn't say anything, it might be the first. First editions, I've talked about this before on the channel, but I'll just sum it up as it's confusing. People use terms differently, but what we generally mean is Roald Dahl is going to publish this book. He goes to his publisher. Publisher hires the printer. Printer prints the book. And the publisher works out, we're going to pay you this much money to make the physical books, so we want X number of them, and the publisher prints them. That's the first edition. In this one, when they printed the first edition, they put that mark on the copyright page, says first edition. If the publisher goes back to the printer and says we need more copies, that is still the first edition. They don't make any changes, but it's going to be the second printing, and there may be a way to figure that out. It might not be on the copyright page. It might be some other mark or some other indicator it's the second printing. The second edition is when we make changes. So if Roald Dahl's not happy with something, or someone finds a typo, or we have to make a change for some reason, then the printer actually makes a change, and that's the second edition. And in this book, they take off on the copyright page, they take off that line that says first edition. And sometimes it'll say second edition, sometimes it'll say nothing at all. A lot of modern publishers put the number line, and if the one is there, it's the first, and then they just take the numbers off as they go. But on this one, it says first edition. I also have this collection of short stories, some of them overlap. The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar and Six More. These are slightly longer short stories, and this one is published by Alfred Knopf, which is always easier. They use the number line. There's a bunch of little blurbs here about where these stories are first found, which is that magazine situation. And then here is the number line right there, and there's a 1. And that's how we know that one's a first edition. I also have, this is obviously modern. I picked this up at a book sale. It was very cheap because I love them. This is Viking. And then this one, The Umbrella Man and Other Stories. There's also, this is a lot, right? Look at all the things they feel like they need to tell you. This one has the number line, and there's a 1. So this is also a first. Now his other complete works are a little trickier and more expensive. I have found a few of these, and if you watch the channel, you know I'm very frugal. I do not love to pay a lot of money for my books, but I can tell you the short stories. The rarest is the Someone Like You. I got this at a charity book sale. It was $80, and I felt like that was a fair price, and it was for charity, so I was fine with it. This maybe you could find it in a bookstore. It would cost more than that. It would probably be in a retail, nice bookstore, 100 to 200, somewhere in there, I'm guessing. They have to pay rent and their staff. Online, maybe 100 if you got lucky, if you could find one. The dust jacket, I think, is in good shape. It does have a little loss across the tops, so I thought that was a fair price. It's a lot of money for me to pay for a book, but I did it. And if you want a very special copy of the short stories, I think that is the one to go for. Now, his actual books. A lot of his for real books were published first in the UK and then later published in the US. So there's going to be a UK edition and then a US edition. And if you buy one of these online, this is tricky because people call everything a first edition because it's hard to tell. And maybe they don't know, but if you buy something on, say, an auction site, I have seen many, many things called a first edition. James and the Giant Peach, a wonderful book. I remember that in elementary school, this was one of our story time books that the teacher read aloud. This is not first. The hardcover is red, and on the first, or at least the most consensus I can find online, is that there should be a dark border here, a band, and it is, I think, black or extremely dark blue. And then this portion, 3/4, is very light blue, a sky blue. So I know this one isn't a first. That's really the only way I can tell. This color of the end papers is green, I think, in the first edition. This is price clipped. That is a thing that happens, and it can be totally innocent. If you give someone a gift that's a book, people often do that. They cut the price off. I don't know why. Don't do that. But the price changes over time, and that's one of the ways you can tell which edition it is. So I can't tell. On the back of this book, the ISBN number is printed here. 3, 4, 8. There's only 9 digits. I think this is the ISBN. Somebody tell me if I'm wrong, if that's a Library of Congress number. I think this is an ISBN. This is a pretty nice copy. I have the dust jacket. It's got a couple areas of loss. And on the copyright page, this is what I have going on. I've got some of his previous works listed, and there are, I think, previous versions that don't list that. And then here we have the actual copyright page that, it does say Library of Congress number is a different number. So it is the ISBN on the back. You're going to see online, if you want to be a sleuth, people are listing this book and saying it's a first edition, and there's a barcode here with the ISBN. And obviously that's going to be a later edition. We didn't use barcodes back then. And this one just says 1961. It's got this little text here about where it was first printed and some things about if it was printed in Canada. And that's really all I have. I do not know what edition this book is. I know it's not a first, and I didn't pay a ton of money for it. I got it at a book sale for $1. I think it's early, and I'm happy to have a vintage copy. So to me, super special. Also, that is a creepy book. At one point, I mean, right? The insects in the peach are enlarged and gigantic, and the kid is stuck with them on a flying peach. It's creepy. And I love it. Okay, Danny the Champion of the World. Wonderful. I remember reading this with my dad as a kid, so I love this book. It has the ISBN on the back, and this is price clipped, so I'm missing a clue. And the copyright page has a number line, and it has a 2 on it. But you can see it's not 2 through 10. It's got these really high numbers at the top, which sometimes means that they had 1 through 10 and ran out and started over. But it goes to 15, so my best guess is this is a second, which is still pretty good, right? I think this is the US version. Okay, this is one I did not read as a kid, but I found it in my book travels, and it is actually right now on my to be read shelf. I'm going to read this soon. This one says first US edition on the copyright page. So I know it's a first US. And I don't actually know, I haven't researched enough to know if this one was originally published in the UK, but I think it probably is. I think there's an earlier edition out there. But for me, this is pretty great. This one does have the price has not been clipped. And I can show you, this is what's going on in the back. I don't know if this is a printer fault or what. Should it have the ISBN? I just don't know. But I believe this is a US first. I don't have any idea how much that retails for. It's really hard to guess. I haven't seen that many, and I've never seen it for sale in a shop. So I think it's an obscure one, and it's a first, so probably good. There is probably a UK version that would make it less expensive, so I would just be hazarding a guess. $20? I don't know. If you know, please tell me. This one, George's Marvelous Medicine. I did not read this as a kid. I was so happy to run across it as an adult. It is also kind of strange, and here, Roald Dahl is really thinking hard about what you could make with your leftover liquids around the house and garage and then drinking them, which is a terrible idea. This book would never be published today, I think. This one is a Knopf, and it is a stated first US edition, and it also has the number line with a 1. So I'm pretty sure this is the first US edition. I don't really know what this one goes for. This, I would say, probably 25 to 50 maybe in good condition. And then the UK one, if the UK one's first, it's going to be more. The BFG, a wonderful book. Also a wonderful animated movie. Fantastic. The Queen makes an appearance. I recommend it highly if you're thinking about the Queen these days. Okay, this one, there's no ISBN. There is a price. And this one is published in England by Jonathan Cape, printed and bound in the United States of America. This is the first US edition. I don't remember how much I paid for this, and I don't know what it would cost you. The first US edition, maybe 25 to 50, again, online in an auction if you're lucky. And then the UK version is going to be the real crowning achievement. I should try to find the UK editions. Okay, this is the reason that I keep talking about edition. This one is tricky, and it is particularly interesting because the US is the first edition. So in this case, this is the big one, right? This is the headliner. If you look online, there will be many, many different kinds of this book with a lot of different attributes, all telling you that they are the true first edition, the first edition, the first printing first edition, and so on and so forth. I would also say Roald Dahl is no longer with us, so that really makes you should give pause before you buy anything that is saying that it has been signed by him. There's no one, I don't think, that authenticates that kind of thing. There's no house that I know of that you could take it to make sure, and it's really hard to tell when you're buying something online. So I've seen many copies of this book that claim they are the first and that they are signed, and I'm thinking, how many could he possibly have signed? Okay, so this one, the one that I have, I got this at an auction on a shelf. I bought the whole shelf. And I'm not sure that everybody in the room understood what it was. The dust jacket has seen better days. It's not a good one. It is missing a good portion in the front, but I have most of the spine. So on the shelf, it looks pretty good. And this is an improvement. I upgraded. I had a previous copy of this book because I love Roald Dahl, and I mean, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. To me, it's the great one. Okay, now this copy that I have, it is price clipped, so I can't tell if that matches what it should be. This is the cover. It's got this imprint that's got this gate, this iron gate illustration of, I guess, the factory, and it's red. The end papers is this crazy goldenrod yellow. This is usually described in book listings as mustard yellow. Very, very appetizing. There's this introduction, and then there's a title page, and on the copyright page, it has this. This is called, in a lot of listings, the calophon, the C-A-L-A-P-H-O-N. And see how it has from here to here, there's 6 lines. When they made the second edition, when they printed it, they went back to the printer and said, we need more copies. They changed this to 5 lines. So sometimes you'll see it has the 6-line calophon. That's the first edition. And then the other thing that sometimes people note is that this is what it says on the back page. There's a thing here about the author and then the text, the type, the font. This is, as far as I know, the actual first edition. But I'm telling you, you will find them online with not this cover. They changed this cover later to a different color. You'll find that, and people will say, oh, it's first edition. They changed the end papers to green later, and then, of course, they changed the copyright page to this calophon, the number of lines in the calophon. But this one, unlike the others that are US editions, this one doesn't say anything. It doesn't have a number line. It doesn't say it's a first edition, and that means it's very easy to pretend or be confused that the one that you have is a first edition. This book, with a better dust jacket, can be thousands of dollars. I paid, because I bought a whole shelf, and if you did the math and divided it, I said I paid $1.15 per book, which is a great steal, I think. I am pretty sure, as I'm saying, that this is the first edition. If you have definitive knowledge about the first edition or the points of how to determine it, please tell me. I would love to be told that I'm wrong and be educated about other ways to tell. But online, that is consistently, for this book, the points that you should look for. And you should not be confused, because I hate that people are listing any old copy of this book and saying it's a first edition and trying to charge a lot of money for it. This is the sequel, and I can tell you, I'm using so many copies of this book at used book sales, at auctions. I think that because the first one was so incredibly popular, this one, when they went to the printer, they ordered a lot of these books. This one is a 4th printing, and helpfully they told us what it was. So 4th printing usually means that we had the first edition and we ordered a certain number and we ran out, and then we had them print them again and then again and again. And each time they printed it, in this case, for this book, they wrote the printing number. So it's the first edition, 4th printing. Sometimes people say printing and they mean edition, but I think in this case it really does mean printing. So this book, a first edition, not the first printing, maybe $10, it'd be easy to get. There are a lot of copies of this, like I said. So if you wanted a nice, you like Roald Dahl and you want something a little bit special, that is an easy, economical one to pick up at a very reasonable price. And if you want Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I support you, but please be careful when you buy it that you really know what you're getting. And I definitely always, if you're going to buy from an online site where there are a lot of different people selling, make sure that you're going to be allowed to return it. Because if you get it and you research it and you find out it's not the edition they said it was, then you can always return it. So you want to get your hands on it and really understand what it is. But this one, I'm just telling you, I'm really emphasizing the points because I've definitely seen people advertising copies that are not a first edition, and they're saying that they are. The other ones that I don't have the Witches, and I don't have Matilda, and I really want them, but I haven't been looking lately. Maybe I should. Maybe my luck will turn. What do you think? What should I look for first, the Witches or Matilda? It's almost Halloween, so I really want the Witches, but I feel like it'd be more expensive this time of year. So I'm hoping to go book treasure shopping soon. Do you think that if I talk about Roald Dahl and I concentrate, do you think that I'll get to find a good copy of Roald Dahl? It could happen. Thank you for the support. Anyways, these are my Roald Dahl books. I love them. I really encourage, if you love them as a kid, as an adult, I think you'll love them. And if you do enjoy Roald Dahl, check out his short stories. I think they're fantastic. Thank you for watching, as always. Again, thank you for all the support. If you enjoy this video, please let me know so I can make more of them. And thank you for watching. Happy reading.